I'm making this a more lighthearted thing today. Um, I haven't gone to see Deadpool and Wolverine yet, but today is the premiere here in the United States. It already aired overseas because I've already talked to some people in the Philippines who've seen it. I asked them, will I enjoy this? They said very much so. So I'm kind of excited about that. Let me see if I can elevate this a little bit. So, yesterday was an excellent show, but I don't want to talk politics again today. We can do that another day. But yeah, guys, I'm kind of stoked about seeing Deadpool and Wolverine. It's rare that I'm excited about a superhero movie anymore, especially when it comes from Marvel, because they have been on the sucky sucky side for a while. But yeah, um, I do want to see this movie. So, I figured I just asked the question broadly. Um, who is your favorite superhero and why? Of course, I'm going to reveal mine. Uh, Spoiler alert: it's not Deadpool, nor is it Wolverine, but he's one of my favorites. My favorite is actually dun, 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 Batman. But some people dislike him now because he's so popular, but he is like within the top three superheroes that everyone has across the world. Like generally, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man are the three favorites across the world when asked of people. But I would consider Wolverine in the top 10. Probably Deadpool as well, if you can consider him a superhero. A he's not a superhero proper. He's more of an anti-hero, and he actually started off as a villain in what was it, X Force. I actually have the comic book of his first appearance. It's not a first it's not a first printing, by the way. It's just a facsimile reprint. But yeah, um, it it shows his he was still, even as a when he was a villain, he was kind of snarky. And he was created basically as a sort of as a poor copy of a DC comic book supervillain. Deathstroke the Terminator, who was like a bad guy, I think, who started out in the New Titans for the Teen Titans as one of their supervillains, rogues. Then he became a Batman rogue, and now he's like an anti-hero. And they boosted him up where he's basically like second best to Batman as far as it comes to fighting. Like he's one of the best fighters in DC now. It used to be like Batman, Lady Shiva, um, and some other people. Mostly either people trained by Batman, or people who trained Bruce himself. So let me make sure I can see my comments here. Yep, I can see. I think everything. Yeah, live. So I've switched this to live chat, so all messages are visible. But if it gets too inundated, I might have to switch it to top chat, which some messages, such as the potential spam, may not be visible. Actually, I should probably do that now just to make it make it safe. Because yesterday it was so many comments I couldn't even get to them. That was the first time that's ever happened. But I guess now that I have super chats, it can go that way. And I was talking on a very contentious topic, which was about Kamala's rise to presidential front runner for the Democrats. That became a very heated and contentious exchange, and I couldn't follow everything, so I'm sorry for that because I didn't anticipate it. I'm used to these more intimate vertical live streams, so I've switched to a horizontal live stream today. Yeah, it did go crazy, Miss Needle. It like I was trying, you know how I usually try to keep up with everyone's comments, and we go back and forth with everyone. Um, so I was doing that for like the first 2 hours, and then I realized I'm way behind because usually I'm at least 5 minutes behind, but it looked like I was like an hour behind in the chats, and then I realized I had to scroll all the way down, and I had missed so many comments. So it was 4 hours in, and it was like past 3 in the morning. I didn't even know it was that late. so I still, so I got through all the super chats because I had to acknowledge all those people who sent me money and stuff like that. So I acknowledged all the super chats, and then I it ended the stream like over 4 hours in. So that was crazy. I didn't anticipate that. But yeah, this is something much more lighthearted. Like I said, I'm talking about superheroes because again, Deadpool and Wolverine comes came out today, and like I said, my friends overseas already started watching it. She said, "Dang, yeah, you gotta skip the comments. Then it causes lots of confusion too when people react to something you said and you read like 30 minutes." Yeah, I know, right? I know. So this is easier. I'm doing a horizontal stream. It's doing it a little bit differently where the comments will appear and then disappear. So we'll see how this goes. I said a few days ago I was going to try the horizontal stream because I couldn't do the live streams on a horizontal pivot for some reason before I was monetized. Now I can. Um, Now what I could have done was to use there's some other apps out there that allow you to live stream through YouTube, which I've tried. I think it's Duck something or whatever, but I've used that originally because the first time I did a live stream, I did it with a friend, and she showed me how to do it. A Filipina friend named Marie, whose YouTube channel name is Glamlux. But yeah, so um, I'm not seeing Deadpool and Wolverine today, but I'm planning on seeing it this weekend. There's actually a showing through this theater local to me where they're actually showing it for free as part of this program that they have with this theater. I guess it's to just to get people outside and do stuff like that, which is awesome. So I might check that out. Now, if there's too many hood boogers there, then I'm gonna just pay. But you can reserve your ticket now, so I'm trying to see if someone can come with me because I don't want to go by myself. Because again, I've never been to this venue, so I don't know the sort of people that might be there. But I prefer to have one of my friends with me who can still carry. And I know I should get my own concealed carry too, but I just haven't been invested in doing so because I keep saying that I'm going to be overseas soon, so there's no point in investing in getting a concealed carry and firearms, and I have to leave all that here. So we'll see. I might change my mind on that. But in any case, I do plan on seeing it. And so, like I said, I'm asking who is everybody's favorite superheroes, and it doesn't. It does, when I'm saying favorite superheroes, I'm not saying only between Deadpool and Wolverine or just Marvel. I mean any superheroes. Whether you're talking about DC, Marvel, Image, um, Image Comics, IDW, Dark Horse, Valiant Comics, all of those, and there's some other ones out there, some other independent um, comic books as well outside of those. Those are probably the most well known though. But like I said, for me, it's Batman. No, there's just yeah, it's not even it's not even close. But Wolverine is one of my favorites. Uh, if I had to give like my top three, uh, yeah, Batman, um, Wolverine. So he is in my top three, and Spider Man. Yeah, those would be my top three. And I think the only reason I am a hardcore DC Comics fan, as opposed to only Marvel, is because of Batman. But of course, Superman too. He's in my top five. He's just not in my top three. So if I extended it more, it'll also include um, Superman and Captain America, right? So I have a mixture of I like the dark heroes and the uh, the really Boy Scout type uh, characters like Captain America, Superman, Spider Man. But I also like the dark heroes like Batman and Wolverine. Then if I extended even farther, also Daredevil, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Um, who else? But all like I'm talking about all actual superheroes. Not I'm not including the anti-heroes in there. Like I like Deadpool as well, but yeah, I guess you could make an argument that he's a superhero, but I would consider him more or less an anti-hero. Like he's usually a mercenary in the comic books. He kills, and he's kind of he's somewhat he's not actually insane, but he's kind of out there. You ever wonder where those superhero stories had their origins? Well, I know where many of them got their origins. Superman is a Moses story. You read the origin story for Superman. A lot of the classic comic book writers were Jewish people, and that some of their um, some of the Judaic myths have inspired the stories of these superheroes. So when you think of Superman, how he left the dying Krypton in a little baby rocket space shuttle, came to the came to the Earth, was raised by his foster parents, the Kents, and taught the American way and all that sort of stuff. It's very much a Moses story, a baby Moses story. But later on, he becomes, as he becomes the Superman, it becomes more of a Christ-like figure. Um, Batman, as written by um, Bob Kane and the other and the guy who actually like created Batman. Well, Bob Kane gave the idea, but what concept, but the other guy's something little. Well, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was inspired by like some of the crime that I think they faced. Being kids in New York City. In the 20s and 30s, that inspired them. Plus, what also inspired Batman was like um, some of the pulp fiction magazines of the time, like The Shadow, and as well as uh, stuff like Zorro, The Legend of Zorro. All that sort of stuff kind of inspired the Batman thing. But yeah, if you're talking about the other ones like Wolverine, all that sort of stuff, I'm not sure. But yeah, a lot of a lot of the origin stories for some of the early Golden Age comic book heroes, at least. These were inspired by the experiences of those early Jewish writers, whether religiously or from their own background growing up. Because a lot of them grew up in like New York City and places like that. I think the creators of Superman, though, like I think they grew up in like Cleveland, Ohio, or somewhere. So they gave Superman that like wholesome sort of childhood upbringing that they had. What's the first comic book you read, if you can remember? Um, it was, I believe, Spider Ham, Peter Porker. So he's like an alternate version of Spider Man in another universe where it's all like human like animals, and so there was a human like pig named Peter Porker who became Spider Ham. That was like the first comics I read. Uh, when I used to go to Virginia with my father, we would like go fishing and stuff like that. Yeah, Peter Porker, not some sort of porn thing. Like he's like a pig, an actual pig. You got watch. You have to watch Spider Man and the Spider Verse to see who he is. They actually show him. Um, but yeah, it's more the the, the animal the animal universe is made more just for kids. So it was appropriate. I was like 6, 7 years old at the time. And like I said, so we used to go to Virginia, go fishing in this area called Rockfish, Virginia, very rural part of Virginia. And usually right before we did so, we would go to like 7-Eleven. He would pick me up some snacks. He'd let me get a few comic books to keep me occupied. And usually that's what I would get. I would get either Spider Ham or I forgot the other, Top Dog or something. Joe says favorite superheroes, the OG Green Power Ranger, and the favorite anti-heroes. Okay. Okay, the Green Ranger is definitely what's up. Have you seen? I don't know if you've seen it, Dilford, but there's a YouTube channel called Bat in the Sun. Um, they had the original Green Ranger on there doing a bunch of stuff. Like he played himself as the Green Ranger and as the White Ranger, the actual actor, and he still was in shape. And he took his life 2 years ago, but he was actually working on a movie with the guy behind Bat in the Sun, and the movie I think has just come out or is about to come out sometime this year. And it has like some loose elements connected to the Power Rangers, but it's a completely separate story. You should definitely check that out, or you can just watch the Bat in the Sun videos where they show the White Ranger or the Green Ranger versus other people. I think it's like like Green Ranger versus like Ryu and stuff like that. It's really good. Oh, there was one. It was the White Ranger versus Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. That was good. But yeah, check out Bat in the Sun. Really great YouTube channel. You get to see them like have all these contests between two different types of characters, and basically who win is by vote. Like people vote on which character should win. So that's how they base it. It's not based on like on other channels where they do like a comparison of their powers and abilities, and then based on that say who will win the fight. Instead, on Bat in the Sun, they just do it by vote. Like who, and usually it's and honestly usually it's just who's the more popular character. So whenever there's like Darth Vader versus anyone, usually it's always Darth Vader who wins because he's usually the more popular. What's up, Amani? How are you? So there was like Darth Vader versus Gandalf, Darth Vader versus Batman. Now that one was so close they had to film two versions, one where Darth Vader won and one with Batman who won, because usually those two are the favorite characters. They had Batman versus Dark Wolverine, which is a variant of the regular Wolverine. So Dark Wolverine isn't from the 616 universe, but for those who are Marvel nerds, what I'm talking about. 616 is the canon universe within Marvel. So Dark Wolverine is from a alternate universe. I don't know which universe Dark Wolverine is from, but he took on Batman. So they got a bunch of good stuff on there. They had Casey Jones from the Ninja Turtles versus Kick-Ass. That was good. They had so many good ones. One of the best ones they had was it was like Daredevil versus Nightwing. That one was really good. Wait, was that? Yeah, I think that was them. Well, I like whenever they do the Joker, because the guy who actually runs Bat in the Sun, he will act out scenes on his channel too. He loves playing the Joker. He does a really good job. He's so the channel is kind of like Death Battle, where it's two characters from different media fighting it out, but through votes. Yes. So that's the difference. Because I watch that as well. I watch Death Battle as well. So Death Battle, like I said, is different. Death Battle will actually make the victor the person who is the more powerful based on all their abilities. But Bat and Sun does it differently. They make the winner based on whom got the most votes. So it's more interesting that way. And he has a bunch of new battles lined up because since they were filming that movie, the Tommy acting is his last thing you'll ever see him in is this movie. So that's why a lot of people are gonna show up for this film. And I think it already came out. I'm sorry if I don't know specifically, but that was the last thing he was in. So a lot of people are showing up for that film, even though it's like an independent film. But because of that, they haven't filmed anything in the last 3 years. So now they're filming all new battles right now. And this guy does a lot of this stuff out of pocket. So it takes more time, and he does like a some crowdfunding to get money for these battles because they're not animated like Death Battle does. These are like actual actors doing it. So that's the difference between another difference between Death Battle and Bat in the Sun is it's live action. It's not animated. Death Battle only did like maybe 2 battles where they did live action. Maybe just one. But yeah, for me, Batman is my favorite. Now, who do you consider your least favorite superhero or villain? Least favorite superhero. There's a lot of ones that I don't like, to be honest. There's more that I don't like there's more superheroes I don't like than the ones I do like. Like basically any derivative characters I dislike. Like all the derivative versions of the Hulk, all the derivative versions of Captain America, all the derivative versions of Superman, um, derivative versions of Batman, all the Wolverine children. I don't like derivative characters. Those are my least favorite. Any character, instead of them making a brand new character with their own abilities, their own identity, like they're just a continuation of the moniker of a legacy superhero character. I can't stand them. Um, Villain. I don't get into the villains that much, but usually any villain that's not really like well done. I don't really like, but I don't have a least favorite villain. But yeah, as far as least favorite superheroes, is any of the derivative characters. Like basically everything that came out of the all new, all different Marvel back in 2012. Most people hate all those characters, or not hate, but dislike most of those characters, like the new Miss Marvel and the new Captain Marvel and everything that came out all new, all different Marvel. The Amadeus Cho Korean version of the Hulk, like that was just a joke. Um, it, I don't like derivative characters, and I don't like characters where they um, just change the race or the gender of the character. Those are my least favorite characters. because I just find them like not good. I think the best new character came out of all different Marvel was Miles Morales. Like he was a good character because he was actually well like fleshed out. He had his own sort of personality, his own. He had unique abilities that Peter Parker didn't have. He wasn't made to be better than Peter Parker. Like he had his own unique experience. He wasn't just a Mary Sue, and yeah, he was a black character, like black um, Afro Latino kid, but he his character seems genuine. That's why people like him, whereas people don't like Ironheart because she's just a Mary Sue that's made to be better than Tony Stark. But yeah. So the thing I love about Miles is they are not shoving down our throats that he is black. That's exactly my point. Like that's just a part of whom he is. It's not the whole thing, right? Like the black female superheroes are my least favorite. Yeah, that's the black female superheroes are my least favorite because they're usually just Mary Sue's. Like they don't really have any good. They don't have any personality. They are all like super this, that, and other. So I refuse to watch the Marvel so bad to me. I watched it on Disney Plus just to see it. It was bad, but it wasn't super bad. But it wouldn't have been something that I would have paid to see in the movies. It was not great at all. Even and the cameo at the end didn't improve it. I mean, I think we can talk about the cameo now. It's been like what 2 years since they came out. You know when the um, the black character ends up going into another universe where it's the X-Men and she encounters Beast, the original Beast played by um, what's the dude from um, Kramer? I mean not Kramer. You know what I'm talking about? The sitcom that was the spinoff from Cheers with the psychiatrist guy, Kelsey Grammer. That's it. It's the original Kelsey Grammer Beast from the old X-Men movies, who she encounters on the other side, as well as her mother playing the original Black Captain Marvel in that universe. Even that cameo wasn't good enough to save the movie. The movie was just bad, and the villain was just horrible. Like no one took the villain seriously. The best thing out of that was Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel. She's actually delightful. Like I actually like the character from the all different Marvel. It's just that her stories weren't interesting. So did you hear that Deadpool almost didn't happen because Disney didn't want to do an R-rated movie until Hugh Jackman decided to join? Disney can't make good choices. That's Kevin Feige. I don't think that's Disney. I think that's Kevin Feige. I don't trust the choices of Kevin Feige. I think they should have gotten rid of him a long time ago. Unfortunately, not only is he a part, he does not only is he in control of Marvel Studios. You know that Disney promoted him and made him in control of everything of all Marvel Entertainment. So now he controls even the comic books. And so now he's been trying to. Uh, so now he's been rebooting the comic books to be continuous with the movies. So I'm not buying any of the new books that came out. Like the newest stories that came out that I've bought and read was there was the Spider-Man that came out in I think 2022. I got the first issue of that, and the new run of Captain America that came out last October. I bought that in 2000. Well, I bought it this year, but it came out in 2023. So I bought those because usually like Spider-Man and Captain America, like this, like if you just read those alone, they're not connected to the overarching story that you have to be connected to get the whole thing. Sort of like Batman and DC, like you can just read the Batman stories. So well, I didn't even know that. I'm so tempted to drop MCU in general, but I want to see how they treat Secret Wars. I see. I'm not watching Secret Wars unless they rehire the Russell brothers. The Russell brothers said back when they finished doing Endgame that they would like to stay on to Marvel just to do Secret Wars. But otherwise, they were pretty much done with their run uh, of superhero movies. The funny thing is, like, they make great movies, but the movies they've made outside of Marvel aren't as good as the movies they've made with Marvel Studios, like Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. These are like the best movies in in the MCU outside of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, um, they've made, like, Winter Soldier by far is my favorite MCU movie. I bought the DVD. And so yeah, Russell Brothers would be a good choice. I've never even seen any of their other movies. So they've made some good ones, man. You should check them out. They did a movie with Chad Boseman as a cop. It's on. It should be still on Netflix. So that was one of the last movies he made. So I had to watch it. To, R.I.B. Chad Boseman. But yeah, they've made some decent movies, but they just aren't as good as the movies they made within Marvel, because I guess the MCU lets them kind of do what they want. So they've had the best MCU movies. So I'm not even watching Secret Wars unless they allow them to direct it, because luckily they got rid of the whole Kang Dynasty thing. Um, and Kang could have been an interesting character. I don't. People blame Jonathan. What's his name for it? So the only thing I don't like was they nerfed the hell out of Winter Soldier after this movie. After that movie, he never really did much of anything important. Uh, he was good in Civil War as well. He was good in Civil War. They nerfed him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah. Plus, from at the end of the comic book Civil War as opposed to the movie Civil War, he actually took over as Captain America, not Falcon. And not to mention, of course, in the comic books, actually the Infinity War happened before that, before Civil War. So, it is different. Like the whole Ultron War and Civil War actually happened after Infinity War in the comics, but whatever. But yeah, a lot of the characters haven't lived up to their potential after Endgame and stuff like that. But Winter Soldier and Civil War look pretty good as far as using Winter Soldier, I think. But um, what was I saying? So yeah, but Winter Soldier is one of my favorite ones. I think most people will say Winter Soldier, if it's not if it's not their favorite, it's one of their favorite MCU films. And like I said, he was supposed to become Captain American because in the comic books he did. Falcon took over way later. But of course they wanted to do that for the whole identity politics. That's cool, whatever. But no one wants to really see him as Winter Soldier, and everyone's kind of. I think I'm not the only one who hopes this Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, is going to make a cameo in Brave New Order, Captain America. He's a Winter Soldier, Captain America, and Iron Man, top 3 movies. That's a good selection. Mine is what? Winter Soldier. Um, that's my top. Maybe Spider-Man: Homecoming, because I just liked how when they finally brought Spider-Man in, it was like kind of refreshing. Uh, yeah, like I think like Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I liked how they made it like a John. They kind of made it purposely like a John Hughes film from the '80s, like a teenage like little comedy drama sort of thing from John Hughes era of filmmaking back in the '80s with the teen films. So, Homecoming, and I mean I'm not gonna say Infinity War, Endgame, because those are just too obvious. So I'm gonna say everything outside of Infinity. I'm gonna say what my 3 favorites are outside of them. Spider-Man HC was great. A true neighborhood Spider-Man, not fighting a world-ending villain. Yeah, that's what people are tired of. They're tired of like these universal cataclysm cataclysmic events. Like just have a regular bad guy and all sort of stuff. Like so that's why MCU said they were going to break it down between street heroes, street heroes. Then you have your whatever it is after street heroes, then all the way up to your cosmic level superheroes. So they're gonna have like 3 levels of superheroes, and Spider-Man they're gonna make more of a street hero type superhero as he was in the comics. But yeah, every like I said, if I was thinking about top 3 MCU films, I have to take Infinity War and Endgame out of it because otherwise I wouldn't be able to. Um, those would automatically be the top 2. So yeah, Winter Soldier, Spider-Man: Homecoming, and what would be a third one? I don't know if it would be Iron Man, the first one, or um, can I say um, No Way Home because that was sort of like a multiversal movie, but it was still just Spider-Man. Who would I most excited to see in the future? Are you talking about just MCU films? Because in as far as MCU films, I'm not excited about anything anymore. Like I said, Deadpool and Wolverine is probably the last MCU movie I'll probably see in the theaters. The other ones, if I watch them at all, it'll be on Disney Plus because they want to make everything about being an ethnic minority and a woman. So um, I'm not, yeah. After Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm really not excited about anything else they got coming out. I don't care about Blade, if it even gets made, because I think it's going to be trash. Um, and uh, more than likely, Mahershala Ali might just drop out of the project. If so, it's done. They haven't even started filming it yet because they keep disagreeing. They keep hiring and firing directors, or the directors quitting. Mahershala Ali almost quit. Because I was excited about Blade, but now not at all anymore. It's nothing I'm excited about, at least coming from Marvel in the future. Uh, like I said, I will be excited for Secret Wars if and only if the Russell brothers do it. That's about it. Now if you just talk about superheroes in general, then I'm curious how they're gonna handle the Batman now that they're gonna use Damian as his Robin. What's up, J.A.C? Um, yeah, so James Gunn, now that he's the head of DC, he wants to reboot Batman again, and this time it's going to be a younger Batman. He's going to have Damian Wayne as his Robin, and it's going to follow the series from the Brave, I think the Brave and the Bold. And GJ says, growing up Canadian, we love Wolverine. That's fair. He's one of my top 2 superheroes. So um, that's cool. Never mind the phone. Yeah, Wolverine is definitely in my top 3. So last MC movie I saw was Thor: Love and Thunder, and man, I was so disappointed in the Taiki for directing that trash. Yeah, he literally doesn't know the characters. He doesn't care. Let me get this. Oh. Yeah, he literally said he didn't know the character. He kind of just took on the project to make some money. He later on said that in interviews that he really didn't know the characters. It's obvious, like he's definitely an overrated filmmaker. I don't think he's really that good. He's funny. He is funny, but he's an overrated filmmaker. And Thor: Love and Thunder was horrible. Like it took serious. It took what could have been a serious subject matter and just kept putting jokes on top of jokes on top of jokes. Like even when there was a serious moment, then they will put a joke right on top of it. Like his you know, it was such serious subject matter. Like his girlfriend was dying of cancer. The only thing that could save her was her turning into Thor, but by the very by the virtue of turning into Thor, was worsening her cancer. So as soon as if she switches back, she's worse. And then like it could have been a good movie handled by a better filmmaker, like a, a person who's a literal god who's faced nothing but loss in his life. He's lost he lost his mother, he lost his father, he lost his on and off brother, he lost his planet. He, they could have handled that so much better. Um, and then on top of that, then he gets back with his girlfriend just to find out she's dying of cancer. He can't do anything but save her, and he actually takes his warhammer and tells his warhammer protect her. Like, that could have been a really good movie. They messed it up. What is your Mount Rushmore of superheroes? So I just mentioned it. So Mount Rushmore was like 4, right? Okay. So Batman, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Superman, in that order. If I did it in order of chronological, though, it would be. I mean, if I did it in chronological order of when those heroes first appeared, though, it'd be almost the opposite way around. It'd be Superman, Batman, um, Spider-Man, then Wolverine, right? Since Superman came out in 1938, Batman came out in 1939, Spider-Man came out in 1962, 61, and Wolverine came out in the 70s. J.A.C's 90s X-Men cartoon is still the best. It was pretty good, but the last few seasons got too. I actually watched the last 2 seasons on Disney Plus because I never watched them back when they originally aired in '96 and '97. Because when they started doing when it became more sci-fi-ish, like they were traveling into space and meeting the Shi'ar Empire and all this, I lost interest in all that. So I had to actually watch them on Disney Plus because I knew that the X-Men '97 cartoon was coming. I was like, all right, well, let me watch the end of the original X-Men cartoon, so I will be caught up when the X-Men '97 came out. X-Men '97 didn't disappoint. The only thing I didn't like is that they kind of, predictably so, because it's Disney, just concentrate on the female characters. So have you watched The Boys' great parody of superhero movies and politics? I have. I haven't watched the last 4 episodes yet of this season, but it has stopped being good this season. The original, the, yeah, I did like the Phoenix Saga, but no, I'm saying that wasn't the end of the X-Men cartoon. That was like the third. That was like with the second or third season or 4th season or whatever. That wasn't the end of it. The end of it was the whole Shi'ar Empire and when they thought that Professor X died and all that sort of stuff. But that was when they was like traveling through space and doing all this other weird stuff. I don't know. I watched the Phoenix Saga. Like that part was interesting in the cartoon. But to get back to your other question, which way? Let me get back to how do I see these? Because now it does it where the comments disappear and appear. Oh, so does that get you? I'm annoyed they all start having mental breakdowns in season 4 and a lot of bad choices. Yeah. So my issue with The Boys is now it's become the showrunner has made it blatantly just a political show now. Like obviously Homelander is a stand-in for Trump, but that's not really a good insult of Trump because now you just made him a superpowered guy. But it and the little female character is obviously a version of AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But the first 2 seasons were great. Like they were political, but the politics wasn't the brunt of the show, as it shouldn't be because it wasn't in the comic books either. Garth Ennis, the creator of The Boys, hated superheroes, and so he made a comic book showing superheroes to be douchebags who were just concerned about their image and who didn't actually help people. So because he disliked superheroes, he literally made a comic book showing superheroes to be the bad guys. Um, and it was interesting. Like I would have never bought the comics, but I read enough about them or watched like Comic Storian before, rest in peace, to Comic Storian who passed away, a month ago. But yeah, I used to, keep abreast of what was going on in the boys, so I knew what would happen in the show when it came out. But the show was pretty good, even though it changed a lot of stuff. But once they started putting politics above the story, it became less interesting this season. Like obviously, Homelander is, like I said, standing for Trump. His followers are supposed to be like MAGA. Um, it I've lost interest in it, honestly. I will watch the last 4 episodes of this season, but I'm not sure if I'm going to watch the last season when it comes out, probably a year or two from now. And I don't know if it's going to end like the comic books. In the comic books, it ended with Homelander basically taking over the White House. So we'll see if that happens in the show. But I I watch it, but I don't like how they make superheroes look bad because it's become common now. For some reason, it's weird because most comic book writers and artists are pretty liberal and progressive folks, but people on the left wing of the politics now see superheroes as bad guys and fascists, and this is being reflected now in shit like The Boys. So, which is not surprising when it's made by Amazon MGM, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, a real life Lex Luthor. And people have already made the comments that he already has 2 shows running on Amazon Prime that make Superman like characters seem like the bad guys, which would make sense for someone like Lex Luthor to promote something that makes Superman look bad with Homelander and The Boys and with Omni Man in Omni Man and Invincible. So have you ever hear Tristan Tate talk about Marvel and woke cinema now? Instead of making a movie about a real amazing black man, they all make black Vikings, which is historically inaccurate but equal. Yeah, I don't. Stuff like that is why I won't even watch shit like that. That's the reason why I didn't watch the Rings of Power thing on Amazon. That was the most expensive show ever filmed, and it was complete trash. I watched the first episode just to be fair, because I'm like, all right, let me at least try it out. The first episode was boring, and I've never seen such miserable elves. Like, if anyone read Tolkien books, the elves are not dour people. Like, I can see if we were talking about maybe some of the dark elves, but these weren't dark elves. These were high elves. And then another thing people get wrong is they think dark elves were dark skin. That has nothing to do with it. Like the dark elves were dark elves because they never received the light of um, the light coming from their the island that was built for them by the Valar. So they never went on the pilgrimage to get overseas to the Undying Lands where the High Elves um, dwelt. So everyone who made their pilgrimage, even if they didn't actually leave um, Middle Earth, like they were still considered High Elves. People who stayed where they were the Dark Elves. They had nothing to do with their color. The Rings of Power just suck ass, and yeah, I don't like people taking like stuff from Scandinavian tales and trying to gaslight people and tell them that if they don't like that these characters are made black, then they're racist. That's stupid. That you wouldn't take you wouldn't take African folk tales and make those people white and then try to gaslight people and say, oh well, if you don't accept that the Orishi, the West African guys, the Orishi, can be blonde haired and blue eyed, you're just racist. That would be absurd. But you can do that with patently Germanic and Scandinavian mythological characters, right? That doesn't make sense. Uh, Hold on, let me get to these comments. Uh, Molly, for instance, I love Spawn and Deadpool. So you love the anti-heroes. Those are both anti-heroes. That's what I mean. That's cool. It's hard to pick a favorite. Storm, I love too. Iceman, I relate to. Iceman is cool, and both Storm and Iceman now have been made into uh, um, omni-level mutants. Dilford says there's supposed to be a Lord of the Rings animated show coming out soon, right? I haven't heard of that. I mean, they've already had one with Rankin Bass and Junior. I mean, what was it? The Rankin Bass cartoons back in like the 80s. Those are still classics to watch, by the way. But I haven't heard of an animated show coming out. I probably wouldn't watch it unless it was made, I don't know, depending on who made it. Moonlit Friend says Dark Elves and Wood Elves were beast mode and magic. So at least the Wood Elves, at least those were high elves, because those were one of the elves that did pursue the pilgrimage. Only the Dark Elves didn't. So the Dark Elves lacked in the knowledge and magical skills that the High Elves possess. But other than that, they didn't have any difference in how they, like their skin appearance. Moonlit Furnace and the books were amazing. The movie didn't do the elves or dwarves justice. True. Holly Berry is Storm with Chef's Kiss. Storm is high power, but the movies don't tell you. Yeah, they did Storm so dirty in the movies, which is one of the reasons I do like X-Men '97. Like they show her at her strongest. Like when Cyclops was like, Storm, give them the weather forecast, and she comes out and it was like omni level threat, omni level mutant, omni level threat, mutant, omni level, and she just wipes them out. I'm like, yo, that's the shit right there. She gave it to him. J.A.C says best supervillains. I love anything with Apocalypse, Sabretooth, Juggernaut. So again, I know it's cliche, but the Joker, he's one of the best supervillains out there. Like, and there's so many different variants of him. And a good book about him. There was several good ones, but there's the three Jokers that came out. That's pretty good. That where they show him not being one, but actually three different people that are the Joker at the same time. And I think one is the comedian, the criminal. What was it? The comedian, the criminal, and the clown, or something like that. But Joker is one of my favorite supervillains. And I want to say Darth Vader, but I'm trying to just stick with superheroes. So aside from Joker, who else do I like? I don't really care about any of the Spider-Man rogues as much. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Venom when he was a supervillain. Now he's an anti-hero. That's another annoying thing I hate about comic books is that every time a supervillain reaches a lot of popularity, they decide to no longer make them a villain, but an anti-hero. And Riddler, Scarecrow is awesome too. There's going to be a lot of Lord of the Rings anime films by the directors of Ghost in the Shell. Actually, I'm kind of interested in it now. I haven't heard of that. Moonlit Furnace says Ghost Rider and Punisher. Yeah, so you like all the anti-heroes. Most of those aren't like like most of those aren't like superheroes proper. You like the anti-hero type characters, which is cool. But yeah, I'm trying to think of another supervillain I really like outside of Joker. Since I'm not going to include uh, Vader, um, because I don't know, because Joker's literally the only one that I'll buy books about just him. Just like Vader is the only one I'll buy just books and stuff about him. Um, I would say Lady Shiva, but she's not a supervillain. She's more of a anti-hero. Um, Deathstroke, no. Can't say Deadpool because he's not a villain anymore. But he started off as a villain. So did Blade, but also actually so did the Black Panther started off as a villain in the Fantastic Four comic book. Because I actually got that comic book too. I don't have one of the original first printings, but I have like a facsimile reprint. And I love getting facsimile reprints because you get everything, how you get everything from the original comic as it was made, like even the original advertisements that were in the comic book. So facsimile reprints are pretty cool. But yeah, I have the facsimile reprint of the first appearance of Black Panther, who was a villain. I think I have Blade, or if I don't, I need to get Blade. His first appearance was a villain. Deadpool, of course, first appeared as a villain in X Force. No, in no, not in X Force. I think in New Mutants, he appeared as a villain in New Mutants. Uh, but I don't know. I guess the Joker, because like I said, I've bought a. He's the only person I bought like a toy, got books of him. Like I said, Three Jokers is a really good one. It's by DC Comics Black Series, which is their line of more adult oriented comic books. I remember they made one that was really controversial. They had Batman in it because they showed his dick. So they later on took that out of the comic book because a lot of people were upset about it. It was like, why are you showing Batman's dick in a comic book? So it's like you're trying too hard to make this adult oriented Black Series comic books. But Three Jokers appeared in that. Now they tried to um, they tried to recon that story with the Three Jokers and say that that was actually just one person, that was just the Joker handling his different personas. So Fantastic Four movies were pretty trash. Yeah, I was just talking about the comic books. I wasn't talking about the movies. Denver says I love Ra's al Ghul. He's definitely one of my favorite supervillains. I hope they do another movie adaptation with him in it. Yeah, I really like Liam Neeson playing him. I liked how they actually combined him with another villain, like Christopher Nolan. Like a lot of people don't know, if they didn't know the origin story of Batman, he actually combined two different villains in Batman Begins. So there was Ra's al Ghul, but he also played another character who was like a mentor to Batman, who taught him how to be a good detective. But when Batman was in France, he learned how to be a great detective by that guy. But he found out that the guy was later doing some criminal stuff, but out of respect that he taught him to be a good detective, he let him go. And so um, his name was the same name that Ra's al Ghul was pretending to be in the movie. I forgot the name, but Al Ducard, yeah, that's definitely Al Ducard. Like um, Al Ducard was like a villain who was originally a mentor to Batman, taught him how to be a great detective. So both of them were. So that's where the whole play of him being a mentor to Batman in Batman Begins was, because in the comic books, Ra's al Ghul was never a mentor to Batman. He just wanted him to take over, but he did want him to take over his League of Assassins, which they changed to um, the League of the Shadows in the movie, just because they didn't want to make it crystal clear that they were the bad guys by calling them the League of Assassins, so they called them the League of Shadows in the movie. Let's see something, yeah. But actually, the graphic novel Son of the Demon was the first Batman graphic novel I ever bought. Was Son of the Demon, and of course it became it ended up becoming like an Elseworld story or alternate universe story because they decided to take it out of canon, even though that was the first appearance of Damian Wayne as a baby. Moon Francis Israel Batman series, I love that guy. He was crazy though. I, yeah, I read all the the Bane of the Night stories. Who's your favorite multi-universal threat villain? Favorite multi-universal threat villain? Darkseid. Darkseid. He's the very embodiment of evil in the DC multiverse. Um, like they kind of retconned him to be a much more ominous figure in DC, where now um, he's a multi like he and all the new gods are all multiversal beings, and so it gets kind of deep. Like the way it works is the DC multiverse, like uh, the new gods and the old gods actually live outside of the multiverse in their own separate realm of existence called the God Sphere. And the thing is, so in every universe there is a version of them, and but the new gods are so powerful and large beings that they don't ever leave the actual planet of Apocalypse or the planet of I forgot the opposite planet to Apocalypse, where the good new gods live under the All Father or whatever his name is. But yeah, so whenever Darkseid appears like on Earth to fight Superman and all these other people, that's just an avatar of him. That's not his actual. That's not actually him. His actual presence is on Apocalypse, and then you find out that each version out of the different universes within the DC multiverse, these are all just each versions of Darkseid. The true Darkseid is a pure being of, is a cosmic being of just pure energy, as all the gods in the God Sphere outside of the realm of the DC multiverse, and they can't be destroyed. And they're like, so for Darkseid, for instance, he's the very conceptual embodiment of evil. So as long as there's evil that exists within the multiverse, Darkseid himself exists because he is the personification of that very concept of evil throughout the whole DC multiverse. That's how powerful he is. So he's definitely one of my best multiverse threat villains, and his whole thing is searching for the anti-life equation. So with the anti-life equation, he will convert all of the multiverse into basically stuff that he controls everything through the anti-life equation. That's his MacGuffin, the anti-life equation. Whereas the MacGuffin for Thanos was, the Infinity Gauntlets. I mean, Infinity Gems with Infinity Gauntlet. So let me get back to these comments. Delphi says, "I wonder if they're gonna keep him as the big bad in this DC reboot, or go with someone else." Well, you're talking about. I think you're talking about the movies. I'm not talking about the movies. I'm talking about the comic books. I'm more of an actual comic book nerd. like for me, what happens in the movies is kind of irrelevant to what happens in the comic books. But they've never. Oh, I mean, they had a version of him in the Zack Snyder film, but who knows what they're going to do. Um, Moonlit Fern says, like, share, and subscribe, and chat. There's super chat at the bottom right of your screen. Thank you, Moonlit Fern. So yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite supervillains as well. Darkseid. So yeah, Darkseid, Joker. Yeah, those would be my favorites. On the Marvel side, let's see who would be my one of my favorite Marvel bad guys. Um, there's some good villains on that side, but who am I don't know. The Hand. I mean, yeah, the Hand that people like Daredevil and Shang-Chi and Iron Fist all fight. The Hand. That would be like some good super villains in Marvel. Um, who else besides the Hand? Uh, it'll probably come to me, but Marvel doesn't have the best superhero. I mean, supervillains to me. I think DC has the better supervillains. Um, probably and probably like Doctor Doom, but they've never shown a good version of him in the movies yet. So hopefully with Secret Wars they're going to give us Doctor Doom and they're going to give us a better version of him. Now did they, which they almost have to now since they got rid of King, since they're no longer doing the King Dynasty, they scrapped it. They have to give us Doctor Doom, and I think Galactus is coming too. Hopefully they won't fuck up Galactus. But I'm already not too hopeful because they're already giving us a female, yes, a female Silver Surfer. Blue River, thank you so much. She says, I really like your channel. Love listening to your voice. Appreciate it. Thank you. Um, a, comment about my voice. I think a lot of people have said that I have a calm voice, a calming voice. Even my wife has told me that. And I don't know if it came from my psychological background, like the training I received, learning how to do helping skills and how to talk to people in a certain way that makes them more reassured. Um, but I appreciate it. And again, thank you for the super chat. Let me hold up here. Moonlit Fern says Azrael isn't a villain. He's just amazing and wanted to be Batman. Yeah, so I mean he's part of the Bat family now, but he ended up becoming a villain because Batman had to fight him for the mantle of Batman after he came back from healing and going back through intense training with Lady Shiva and others to be able to have his confidence again after Bane broke his back. I am Bane, Batman. Scream my name. I'm joking, but Moonlit Friend says W for blue. Thank you again, Blue River. Difference says I just recently researched Justice League Unlimited. Still holds up to this day as one of the best shows. No, Justice League Unlimited was really good. The only problem I didn't like about the Justice League cartoon and the Justice League Unlimited was that they nerfed Superman so much. Like I hate when they have to nerf a good character just to make a good storyline. Like either they were like they nerf Superman or they would send him off onto other adventures so that the lesser powered characters can actually have a meaningful threat to them. But but other than them nerfing Superman so much, it was a really good, it was a pretty good series. I rewatched it on Netflix too, by the way, as well. I watched I rewatched the whole thing, both the first two seasons of Justice League and then the two seasons of Justice League Unlimited. Have you seen the Samurai Batman versus Joker? I did. I didn't. You mean Batman Ninja? Batman Ninja? I didn't like it. For one, I didn't like the way the animation was. Plus, it seemed redundant saying Batman Ninja because it was like he was already a ninja. He didn't need to go back into feudal Japan and learn to be a ninja when he was already a ninja. And then they it's like they at the end of the movie, it's like they totally they totally jumped the shark when they brought in the the mecha suit, like the mecha suits and the Gundams at the end of it. Like, how are you gonna have mecha suits and Gundams in like fifth in the 16th century Japan? Like, it was like, come on, man, this is a little over the top. So they just made it they just made a sequel to that movie now, Batman Ninja. Um, Batman has no jurisdiction. Yeah, well, that's true. But yeah, they just made a sequel to that movie, and I remember watching it. Like I said, when it came out, it was like 7, 8 years ago now. I just didn't like it. Like, I didn't like the animation style. That's that new CGI anime that I dislike. I hate CGI anime. I like the hand drawn animation style, Japanese anime style. That CGI stuff it just looks bad. And like I said, it just came off a little corny, like how they brought all the DC, like all of Batman's rogues to feudal Japan for him to fight, and then they started these little like they had them in these little mech suits and stuff like that at the very end. I'm like, okay, so you got Voltron and 16th century Japan, and Batman and Joker are like fighting it out with these mech suits. I'm like, no. Only friend says let's hit 100 likes for the chat, please, guys. The likes mean so much. but I do like the Batman mangas. Like, I don't know if you were in my live stream when I have two Batman mangas. They're written by two different writers. One is actually called Bat Manga, and it's basically like the 1960s era Batman in um, in Japan, which is cool. Then the other one is just a manga writer who does a Batman storyline. Um, I think it's called Batman Man of Dreams or something like that. It's really good. Both of them are good. Miss News says drawing comics is a lot of work. Yeah, these illustrators, some of these comic book artists are really, really good. And the fact you can go to these comic book conventions and they can draw it right out for you, right? Like Neil Adams and stuff like that. I'm glad I met him before he died, and I actually had the portrait. Um, he didn't make the portrait there. Like, I just bought the portrait and had him sign it and autograph it to me. So I ended up framing it, and I'm actually glad I did now that he passed away, because he's one of the greats. And Neil Adams was actually one of the influential people back in the 70s that helped give the rights of Superman back to the original artist, so that they are actually credited in the first Superman film because of him. So he was a stand-up guy. Miss Nita said mangas were the hype in my teens. They still are now. I think mangas are starting to become more popular here in America than the comic books. Yep, yeah, I met Neil Adams. I met a lot of comic book artists and writers at comic book conventions, because they're always there. Like, a lot of them, that's how they make a lot of their subsistence, is off of the comic book convention circuit. So I've met a lot of artists. Like, I've seen everyone, like Jim Lee, um, a bunch of people. Delphi says, Miss Nito, anyone can be a comic artist. Just look at Rob Liefeld. Oh, that's not even going to Rob Liefeld. Is it just kidding? The artists in any capacity have great skills. Yeah. So if people don't know Rob Liefeld, take a second, Google Rob Liefeld and see those how badly he draws superheroes. Like clearly needs to take a he clearly should have took a course in anatomy. Like I think uh, the most common image from Rob Liefeld is the image of Captain America. His chest sticks all the way out this far, just like this, like. But it's like his chest is sticking like all the way out, and like he draws like women hypersexually, and their body dimensions don't even like. I'm not a prude. I don't have anything wrong with drawing sexy superhero female superheroes at all. It's just he makes them look so weird. Their dimensions just look so weird. Like Rob Liefeld is even amongst other comic book artists and writers, they make fun of him. Like that's how bad it is. Like even they make fun of his drawings. Yeah, Moonlit Furnace is like that's so cool. Stuff signed by some other artists as well and writers. I can't remember the names. The guy who did the run of Batman for the Batman's wedding, he lives in Maryland, I think. So he always comes up to Third Eye Comics in Maryland, in Annapolis, Maryland. So I've seen him a few times. Like every time he drops something, they have him up at Third Eye Comics. Only for instance, Inuyasha is my shit too, but nothing to do with DC Marvel. Yeah, I mean that's fair. If it's a manga, that counts. But I think as far as superheroes, I'm mostly just talking Marvel and DC. Although we can also include some stuff from like Image, IDW, Dark Horse, and Variant Comics. But the funny thing is, DC and Marvel have both co-trademarked the term superhero, so only they can use the term superhero in their comic books because they both trademarked the term. Which is weird because I never heard of two different companies both co-trademarking a term. But yeah, they both have um, own own the rights to the term superhero. And of course, there are other superheroes outside of DC and Marvel, but they're the only ones that are superheroes proper that can be called superheroes. That's why like in the boys and stuff like that, you'll just see them saying stuff like calling them supers or something like that because they can't use the term superhero. Miss Nita says, Dilfred, haha, well, I draw and paint myself. That's why I said it. And know people who make their own comic book thing. You can, wait. Oh, okay, you draw and paint yourself. Okay, that's what's up. Moonlit Friend says, literally translates to Wolf Boy. Oh, so that's what Inuyasha means, Wolf Boy? I actually didn't know that. Miss Nita says, but you need at least some imagination. Dilf says, I used to draw too, but man, shading and getting proportions correct is such an amazing skill that I did not have. I remember the only time I tried to draw something, I tried to do some sketches based off the book, Bruce Lee's book, Tao of Jeet Kune Do, where he gave a bunch of little sketches of people like doing martial arts. And I remember I actually did some sketches back in high school, and I'm actually surprised they turned out so well. Like I remember my mother or someone was looking at my sketches and was surprised I did it so well. And she asked, I think either she or someone else asked me, did I just, did I, just draw over something else on paper? And I said, no, I said I did this myself. Then I actually had a friend who actually was a really good um, artist at the time. He actually redid the sketches for me to make them even more accurate, which was cool. And in the fourth grade, when I was 9, we had to make our own book. Like one of the things we did, we made our own books. Like we even like binded them in a hardcover and all sorts of stuff ourselves. Like they actually showed us how to create, like actually do like the whole printing process. But I actually made the book myself, and I did a book based off the Transformers the movie, the 1986 film, the animated film, and I looked at it as an adult, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I drew this so well. Like it looked like it it didn't look like something a kid drew. It was actually pretty good, and I don't consider myself an artist at all. Blue River says, "Do you think the new comic books are actually hand drawn or the more computer generated?" So both. It's a lengthy process, Blue River. So you'll actually like in a lot of the comic books at the very end, they'll actually show their process of sketching stuff. So and also when I say artist, so there's actually a bunch of people involved. So you have the anchor, you have the colorist, and then you have the people that put this all together. Okay, so it's actually multiple artists that go involved. So you have the person who's the anchor. Usually they might start off doing some rough sketches, and then they kind of, and then they fine tune it, and then when they finally get done with, and usually they start off hand drawing it. But I think um, at a certain process, then they make digital versions of it, and then that goes to the colorist. The colorist then fills in the um, the uh, the color and all the background stuff, and they might even like clean up some of the stuff that the inker does. Especially with people like Rob Liefeld, you had to clean up a lot of the stuff that he did. um, and then after the writer has filled in all his little stuff, then they'll actually have the person filling in like the thought bubbles and the speech bubbles in the comics. So it's a lengthy process. So it would be impossible not to do it digitally nowadays, but it does actually start with them actually making hand drawn stuff, like um, both in manga and in American comic books. Like it all starts off as hand drawn, and then it goes through a digital process at the end once they edit all the stuff together. But yeah, they still hand draw that stuff. These are still like genuine, genuine artists. Mr. Needle says, "Gotta check out Rob Liefeld." And yeah, you really do. His stuff is off the hook. Just how bad it is. Like some of the stuff people know him from is like the New Mutants, like with Deadpool. Like I, I don't. I think he's one of the creators of Deadpool. I think, or he just drew him. But like I said, a lot of the other artists will have to end up cleaning up what Rob Liefeld did to make the images look at least semi decent, because his stuff is drawn like he just did a nose bump, no, a key bump, and it was like, all right, let me draw this stuff. Yeah, so um, you gotta check out his stuff. Like I said, the stuff he did with New Mutants wasn't bad, but the reason why the stuff he did with New Mutants was good is because I later found out that other artists, in the process of editing and doing stuff and coloring in his sketches, actually cleaned up his work before before they actually printed the stuff. Delphi says anime and mangas everywhere in LA. Crazy how popular it is getting. Yeah, because the nerds are rising to the top. So as nerds have become more influential in society, so has the stuff that they like. Yeah. Miss Nito says Dilford is all practice really, but yeah, I think shading is difficult too. Dilford says Blue. I've seen a lot of artists use AI to assist them with background, so it's definitely going to be used more and more. And like I said, I hate the CGI in anime. It just looks it just looks less. It just looks not very good. Like this is why for a lot of people their favorite anime is stuff from the 90s. Is all hand drawn anime mostly. Miss Nita says Dilford in the way of printed books or just pop culture in general. I'm not from the U.S., so that's why I ask. See, I've seen it mainly in manga artists and manhwa artists, but I'm not too sure of any comic artists using it as of yet. Yeah, so guys, so there's manga that comes out of China and Korea, but they call them something different. So the stuff that comes from China, I think, is called manhwa, and I forgot what they call it coming out of South Korea. But a lot of Korean artists actually are hired by the Japanese anime studios. If you look at the credit, like if you look at the film credits at the end of like anime movies and TV shows, a lot of those artists in those Japanese anime studios are actually from South Korea, and so now South Korea has already started producing their own studios for both manga for their own comic books and their own versions of animation. Ms. Nita says she needs sketches in many fields like art direction or any design process, yeah, or translating ideas to other people. Blue River says cool, thanks. Miss Nita says hand drawn just has a different vibe to it. Absolutely. As I said, that's why people love comic book art. Like people will buy, and I've done it too. People will buy a comic book just based on the covers, like the comic book covers. Like the the cover art is a whole vibe, and for comic book nerds, like people will buy books just on the cover art. Like that's why I bought the new Spider-Man reboot 2 years ago by I think was it Jeff Bagley or whoever the person is who did that new run. I bought it just for the cover art, and there are when like something really big comes out, they'll not only have they'll have variant covers, so you'll have a bunch of different artists doing variant covers for the same book. So the cover art is one of the biggest things for comic book nerds. And like I said, this is all hand drawn stuff. Nothing like there's no you know digital stuff. Like the digital stuff when you see it because it lacks that certain je ne sais quoi that 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 hand drawn art has. This is why people love comic books, not just for not just the great stories told in comic books, but also for the artwork. Miss Nina says, yeah, cover art is super important in anything like magazines or album covers and music or thumbnails on YouTube, right? Speaking of which, like the thumbnails that I use I actually use a lot of stock photos just to give you an inside work into how the sausage is made. No diddy. But I use like a lot of stock photos for my thumbnails for my YouTube um, videos. But I always pick something that's relevant or funny to the topic that I'm going to discuss. So whether it's my live streams like this or my long form pre-recorded videos, or I usually use some sort of like funny or relevant sort of stock photo image. Sometimes I've actually taken my own like pictures and made them my thumbnails as well. So, so Miss Needle, do you have a favorite superhero? I don't think you told us. Like I told, so if you didn't hear what I said my very favorite superhero is Batman, but my second favorite is Wolverine. So of course I'm really excited about the movie that just came out today, Deadpool versus Wolverine, because they brought Hugh Jackman back, and he said he had retired from playing the role after Logan, but people just wanted him. Like for him, I mean, for fans, he is Wolverine. Sort of like back in the '80s, like for everyone, Christopher Reeves was Superman. Like you couldn't picture Superman without picturing Christopher Reeves' face. They've even done a comic book where they drew Superman to look exactly like Christopher Reeve. I actually have that book at home. She says, no, haha, I have no idea of the whole thing. I might have seen some movies, but I grew up without the whole thing, really. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I said my first comic book was Spider Ham, and it's an animal universe where it's a universe of anthropomorphic animals, right? And so there's a pig, an anthropomorphic pig named Peter Porker, who becomes Spider Ham in that universe. That was like the first comic books that I read when I was a child, and then there was another uh, book, comic book that I read. I think it was called Top Dog or something like that. He was sort of like a rival to Top Cat and Hanna Barbera, but he was like the just like Top Cat and Hanna Barbera was this really cool hip version of a anthropomorphic cat in Hanna Barbera. There was like a dog version of him, and so that was the other comic book I used to read as a kid. But like my first like actual like serious superhero was Batman. Like when I was in elementary school, I had two friends that introduced me to like actual Batman comics, and the very first Batman comic I read was Death in the Family, the one which was one of the most controversial books when it was first written, because it shows Robin being killed. He was beat to death by the Joker. Not the first Robin, Dick Grayson, but the second Robin, Jason Todd, who ends up becoming the Red Hood later on in the 2000s when they bring him back from death. But the second Robin, there was a vote because people disliked the character because he was so brash that at the time they did a contest where you could phone in your vote of whether the second Robin should live or die, because they left it at a cliffhanger when the Joker met up with him and beat him, of whether he would survive or not. And it turned out that that a majority of people voted for him to die. But later on in the 2000s, we found that the phone in contest was actually rigged. Apparently, there was a person who did some sort of computer thing or something where he kept calling in. He made it that he could keep calling in repeatedly to to fix it so that the contest would go to Jason Todd being killed. But otherwise, it was probably pretty close. We don't know if DC would have chosen to kill off the character if that person hadn't rigged hadn't rigged the contest and made it so that he would keep calling in his vote to Jason Todd being killed. But that was a brutal comic book. Like, so many things happened in that graphic novel. Like, somehow the Joker became a middle an an ambassador in the Middle East. Batman almost killed him. It literally took Superman to stop Batman from killing him. Then then they visually showed the Joker killing him. Like, he beat him to a pulp with a crowbar. And he was like, just remember one thing, this is gonna hurt you a whole lot more than it's gonna hurt me. He just beat the crap out of him. And the reason this even happened was the Joker had actually got Jason Todd's real mother to trick him and to come into this place because he had her working for him. And despite that, after he beat him to a pulp, he tied them up and set a bomb in the in that warehouse. This is where you decided whether Robin would live or die. And Batman was rushing to the scene, and if Robin lived, Batman would have saved him. If he didn't, he didn't. So because he didn't, he arrived just a little bit too late, and the bomb. He tried to stop the bomb from going off, but the Joker had rigged the bomb so it would go off no matter what. And his mother was sorry that she set him up, and despite being beaten to a bloody pulp, he jumped over his mom to protect her, to make sure to from the bomb. just for Batman to arrive to see Jason Todd completely, you know, messed up. And the mother lived long enough to say he saved me despite me setting him up. So she died there telling Batman, my son saved me despite me setting him up to get killed by the Joker. And then there's this really iconic artwork of him cradling Robin in his arms, that's completely destroyed. That was my first Batman comic book I ever read. I was instantly hooked. I'm like, yeah, this is good. And let me get back to the comments. Um, yeah, Miss Nita says the only comics I read were those in the advertisement magazines and banks or pharmacies because they were for free. That counts. They may not have been superhero comic books. Those count as comic books. When I bought He-Man toys as a kid, well, my parents bought me He-Man toys. They came with a mini comic book and with the action figures, so that actually counts too. I would say He-Man doesn't count. He kind of counts as a superhero, but not really. But if he did, that might be also one of my first superheroes because the He-Man action figures that came out with Mattel back in the early '80s, those were like mini comic books that came with them. They were actually written by Marvel. Blue River says I was so upset when Robin died. Yeah, like I said, the whole contest was rigged by this one person who wanted to see Robin die. So he may not have died if that guy didn't rig the contest where you had to phone and vote. But yeah, that was a for like a I think I was what 10 years old when I read that. Um, either 10 or I was either 10 or 11 when I read that. And that was like I was like, wow, I didn't know comics were this 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 serious. But yeah, Death in the Family is one of the best Batman graphic novels ever. And no matter in the Batman comics, like there's some comics that are held so uh, sac- sacrosanct that even every time they retcon Batman and they retcon the DC comic books, some of his storylines have stayed to be always true. So Batman, Death in the Family has stayed uh, as part of the storyline. Um, the other one, the uh, the one where Joker comes in and cripples Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, that has remained canon. Uh, there's another one that's remained canon. For a long time, Batman Year One had remained canon, but that kind of got replaced by the Snyder, not Zack Snyder, by the way, but a different Snyder, um, who took over in 2011. He did Batman Year Zero, which was like another um, Batman origin story, but he took a lot of Batman Year Zero from Batman Year One and kind of changed it up. But you can kind of consider Batman Year One still like an important origin story. But yeah, the Killing Joke, where like Joker cripples Barbara Gordon, puts her in a wheelchair where she's um, paraplegic. Then he kidnaps Commissioner Gordon and runs him through this amusement park where he tries to drive him insane and Batman kills him. That's still canon. Um, and in the original ending of that comic book, Batman was supposed to kill the Joker and end him, but the editors decided they didn't want Joker to be killed off. So instead, he kind of just picks up the Joker and strangles him a bit after the Joker tells him a joke, and Batman but like actually legit starts laughing at the joke. And like I said, at the end panel, he was supposed to actually kill the Joker by strangling him to death, but they changed they changed it, I guess, at the 11th hour, and the editor said, no, don't kill off the Joker. But Killing Joke is a good one. So if you haven't read that, you should see that. They actually made a movie to that, and another, not live action, animated um, version of the Killing Joke. A lot of people didn't like it because they didn't like how they made this gratuitous scene in the beginning of the movie where the Batman and Batgirl are having an affair. But it was always hinted at in the Batman the animated series that they were having an affair. But it was like sort of like a behind the scenes uh, romance that wasn't showed on screen. It was like a off screen romance on Batman the animated series. But if you watch Batman the animated series, it's clear that they were romantically partnered up, and that was part of the reason why Robin Dick Grayson was mad at Batman and quit. So, uh, but yeah, also for some guys, is Nightwing anyone's favorite? uh, there's a new run right now of the Nightwing series with Bruce Wayne. So in this new run of Nightwing, Nightwing has gone back to Nanda Parbat, which is like this mystic temple in the Himalayas, to be trained after healing up um, from the stuff that happened to him in Bloodhaven. Bloodhaven is a city in New Jersey that he watches over the way Batman watches over Gotham. And yeah, so there are real world plate. So um, DC decided to put all these fictional cities in real world places in the United States. So we now know that like both Gotham and Metropolis, even though in DC comic books they are actually bigger than New York, they're situated like in like but like around Delaware and South Jersey, and Bloodhaven is um, in New Jersey as well. But apparently Gotham and Metropolis are just across the Delaware River from each other, or Gotham River, whatever it's called. But um, it's weird how they decided to put them in a row. I think they probably should have never put them in like fleshed them out, because it's like weird that they're like in Delaware, between Delaware and South Jersey. But in any case, so when Dick Grayson goes to leave Tananda Parbat, which is this mysterious like Buddhist temple in the Himalayas, Batman says, "Hey, look, Robin looked out for me when I had my back broken, and Israel took over, and then all this and that, and then he looked out for me then, and then he took over the mantle of the Bat when I was gone, and helped my son become Robin, and looked after him when I was gone. When people thought me dead, because Darkseid had sent them back in history with his Omega beams. So he said he looked after Gotham while I was away, so I'm gonna look after Bloodhaven now that he's away. And now Bruce Wayne took on the mantle of Nightwing, and is patrolling and patrolling the city of Bloodhaven. And he is funny because he is super ripped up as Nightwing, because Dick Grayson is significantly smaller than Bruce Wayne. He's like 5'10" and much slimmer than Batman. So the the way Batman looks in the Nightwing uniform is the way that Superman looked when he dressed up as Batman in the old in the old cartoon. That I don't know if people saw the Batman the animated series and Superman the animated series, and had a crossover, and something happened to Batman, so Superman came in and pretended to be Batman, and people was like, "Yo, why are you more swole now?" Like, it was funny. So that's what it looks like now with Bruce Wayne playing Nightwing. It was like, yo, why does Nightwing look like super swole like this? He's still holding the Kali sticks, but he's like super swole now. I actually think I'm going to buy that comic book one if I'm gonna try to find it. Let me get to the comments. J.A.C says Adam West was the GOAT while getting bit by a shark. He happened to have a can of shark repellent. No, he had a can of bat shark repellent. uh, Blue Rose says, "Oh my God, I have so much catching up to do. It's been about 5 years since I got my last comic book. Haven't seen any of the Nightwing either." Oh yeah, you got. There's so much that happened to Dick Grayson. You know, he at one point he ended up becoming a secret agent. Um, I forgot the name of that run called. It's called. He starts calling himself I think Richard Grayson instead, and it's a whole. I think it went on for an entire year or 2 years where he was. I can't remember if he lost his memory or something, but he became like a secret agent for the government and was no longer a superhero at the time. So that's a good run. And then, like I said, that new run with the Nightwing with Batman taking over as Nightwing, that sounds pretty cool. I'm actually gonna try to find that comic book next time I go to the bookstore. Um, but the most recent thing I bought at Blue River was Captain America #1 that came out in October 2023. It's a it's like a retcon of his origins. It's still the same story of how he became, you know, Captain America and fought in World War II. That hasn't changed. It's just a new story, given like more more intricacies into his beginnings. So I've read the first one. It's pretty good. I don't know if I'm gonna get the entire run, but usually what happens when there's a new run of something that I really like, I'll just buy issue #1 and I'll go and from issue #1 I'll see if I actually like the entire storyline. And if I do, I'll just buy a trade paperback, which will just have the whole story. Because if I like something, I'll just get the trade paperback just to get the entire story. But it's a lot of stuff that came out in the last 5 years you might like. But yeah. Um, but again, guys, if you want to ask me my Mount Rushmore of favorite characters, Batman, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Superman. uh, Blue River says, okay, yeah, my favorite is Captain Marvel. I love all of it. Which version of Captain Marvel though? Are you talking about DC Captain Marvel, who is now Shazam, or are you talking about Marvel Captain Marvel? And which one of them? Because there's a lot of them. There was the original Captain Marvel, Captain Marvel, right? And then there was the Black Captain Marvel, um, who took his place, and then there was Miss Marvel, who ended up becoming the new Captain Marvel. So I know that's confusing, but I think everyone liked no the Miss Captain Marvel. Okay, you talking about Carol Danvers? I liked her as Miss Marvel, but when they turned her into Captain Marvel, it wasn't as good. But that's just because the all new, all different Marvel stuff that came out that in 2012 wasn't. I don't think the all new, all different Marvel retcon back in 2012 was written that well. I loved her as Miss Marvel though, and even when she became Captain Marvel in the comic book, she was still a likable character, which is so weird that Brie Larson decided to play her completely different from her personality in the comic books because she was a very friendly and affable person in the comic books. I don't know why they decided to make her such an uptight character in the MCU. Like you can make a powerful female superhero without turning her into a girl boss. Like turning someone into a girl boss just makes them unlikable. And Carol Danvers was always a likable person in the comic books. So I don't know why Brie Larson decided to play her in that way. I don't know if that was her own decision or if that was a directorial if that was a directorial decision made, you know, to make her like that. But they made her a very unlikable character in the MCU. I only liked the Captain Marvel movie just because it was well written, but she was honestly, she was the least favorite part of the Captain Marvel movie that I like. Like it was the like one of the last appearances of Stan Lee, and I like the whole vibe of it being set in 1995, the year I graduated high school. So I really enjoyed like the whole 1995 vibe. They showed them at Blockbusters and all, and with the I think like the Nirvana T-shirt and all that sort of stuff. So that was kind of cool. Oh, and then they even showed like in the Stanley cameo, they actually showed him reading his script for the Mallrats movie that was directed by Kevin Smith um, because back then when Mallrats was made, Stan Lee did a big cameo in that movie, so they actually showed him reading the script for Mallrats in the Captain Marvel movie. So I thought that was a really good touch. But yeah, like I said, the movie was good. It was just um, the 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 character herself wasn't the was the weakest part of the movie, and the sequel, The Marvels, wasn't good at all. Um, I don't know why they did it that way, but oh well. But I liked her as Miss Marvel. Plus, you know, she's connected with Rogue because a lot of people don't know that. Said, "Oh, I did not know this. Mallrats got to go back and watch it." Yeah, go back and watch Captain Marvel when they're on what was it, the bus or the subway, and Stan Lee is sitting there is sitting there, and she looks at Stanley and gives him a smile. He has a script in his hand that says Mallrats. He's reading the script for Mallrats in the actual movie. So I was like, that's pretty cool. But oh, what was I about to say about that? Um, about that. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty good. Oh, I was about to say, so when Carol Danvers was still Miss Marvel, people don't know that you might notice that that's how Rogue got her powers. Like Rogue doesn't actually have super strength and flight and durability. She got that from absorbing those powers from Miss Marvel. Like, you know, her powers were just that she could absorb other people's powers, but she ended up absorbing Miss Marvel's powers for so long that she ended up taking both her personality and all her superpowers. So that's why Rogue has all these amazing powers. It's because she actually took all of Miss Marvel's superhero powers from her temporarily, but then she ended up keeping even after Miss Marvel regained consciousness and got her powers back. Rogue had held on to her for so long that she permanently retained all of Miss Marvel's abilities. J.A.C says only X-Men character I thought they did poorly was Rogue. Are you talking about in the live action films, or are you talking about in the cartoon? In Miss Neil says, is it always like a new series or continuous storyline? So every decade or so, yes, they do a reboot. It might be a it might be a complete retcon or retroactive continuity, or it might just be a soft reboot. Um, that's to the reason they do that is so that they can gain new readers, because if they this started with DC back in like the 80s, because from the time of the books from the golden era of comic books, which was the 30s, up until the 80s, you went from the golden era to the silver era to the bronze era to the modern era, which started in the 80s with the release of the Dark Knight Returns and the I forgot the other graphic novel, but that was the start of the modern era of comic books, which is still going on to this day. Which I think they should kind of change that. But in any case, um, they realized it was hard for new readers to get into it because there was literally like decades of storylines. They were all connected and convoluted that people, a new reader wouldn't know where to jump in. So they decided, well, let's just restart this. And that's when they came up with the uh, crisis on infinite, uh, the crisis of on infinite Earths. So they basically destroyed all the multiple universes and just made one universe and restarted a new storyline so that everyone, the people jumping into the comics, could start in from that point on. And Marvel decided to end up doing the same thing with Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars, there, because there's two Secret Wars they've done. One back in the '80s, and then one, which they started a toy line with it, by the way, as well. And then the Secret Wars they had in the 2010s. But um, now both comic books will readily retcon everything so that new readers can jump in. And sometimes they hate it, sometimes they like back in 2011, DC did a big retcon of DC, and it was actually kind of successful, but a lot of people didn't like it. Um, and then Marvel did the same thing a year later with the all new, all different Marvel, and then they retconned it again since then. And DC has rebooted twice after this with the DC Rebirth and whatever they did just recently. So they regularly do these reboots so that new readers can jump in and not feel overwhelmed with all the previous stuff that's happened in the past. And on top of that, DC decided to keep their original numbering from the original books. Um, Back in 2011, they stopped the numbering system, and a lot of comic book nerds was mad. They was like, "Man, no, I've been following this for X amount of years, blah 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 blah." So they restarted the numbering, and that's how they got to DC Comics 1000 and Batman 1000 and Superman 1000, to hark back to all the original books all the way from 1938 and 1939. Marvel decided to do the same thing. However, Marvel never kept an original numbering system like DC did. So they kind of just fudged the numbers when they came up with Marvel 1000. And then they did Amazing Fantasy 1000, because in Amazing Fantasy is where where Spider-Man first appeared in issue 13, I think, or something like that. But they did an Amazing Fantasy 1000, and now they're coming up on to very close to Spider-Man 1000. So that will be the next one. But again, Marvel never had a continuous numbering system like DC did. But even so, DC has decided after the ruckus back in 2011, when people were pissed off that they had got rid of the original numbering system, that even with all the retcons, they want to keep the original numbering system. So for the hardcore comic book nerds, if they want to trace all the stuff all the way back to like earlier stuff, going back to the original comics from the 30s and the 40s, they can do that. But Marvel doesn't do that. So that's the difference with the retconning. Let me see. J.A.C says live action. Yeah, they haven't done a good version of Rogue in live action. I do agree. Neither Storm. I mean, because let's be honest, the only ones they really concentrated on was like Wolverine and Professor X. Those were like the two main people they concentrated on in the live action. And then, and I guess you could say Magneto as well. GJC says, I remember Rogue as a southern sassy type personality in a movie. She was an emo northeastern girl. Yeah, they kind of botched that. Bluebird says, "Oh, got to be up at 5 a.m. bedtime." Yeah, I gotta be up early too. So if you gotta go, that's fine. He said, "Thanks for the amazing." She says, "Thanks for the amazing chat and the great info. I will be back next chat for sure. Have a great night, everyone." Thank you, Blue River. Again, thank you for the super chat, and thanks for talking with me. I appreciate it. Uh, Miss Nita says, I always thought that they're going to recycle ideas and stories at one point or another with that miniseries. Oh no, they definitely recycle ideas. Definitely. um, but they might, like I said, with Marvel, they did Secret Wars twice. They did it back in the '80s to basically copy what DC did with Crisis on Infinite Earths. They did a whole Secret Wars saga, and then they redid Secret Wars back in the 2010s. Same thing with Civil War. They did a Civil War which was really popular, and then they did a Civil War Part Two, which people didn't like. Civil War Two came out back about eight. I'm gonna say about 8 years ago. People didn't like Civil War Two, but they did like Civil War One. And in case you're wondering, the movie Civil War was nothing like the comic book. Give me a second, guys. All right, sorry, guys. So, anyway, what was I saying? So, yeah, so Secret Wars was done twice. Civil War was done twice. The Crisis on Infinite Earths was done multiple times. There was Crisis on Infinite Earths, then then it became Infinite Crises on Earth. I don't know. So they did that a bunch of times. So yeah, they definitely repeat ideas. I mean, how can you not? If you got comics that's run for almost 100 years, like Superman has been going since 1938. 1938. So that makes it what in his he's in his 80s. Same with Batman. Batman came out in 39, a year after Superman, as a rival comic book, because they weren't originally all together under the DC imprint at the time. So they were rival. Also, Captain Marvel, the original DC Captain Marvel, was a rival to Superman. Actually, he was a ripoff of Superman, and DC, um, the company that DC that was before it was called DC, it was called National Publications. They successfully sued the comic books that made Captain Marvel and had them shut down because of Captain Marvel being a ripoff of Superman. And at the time, Captain Marvel was actually more successful than the Superman comic book. And at the time, also Superman couldn't even fly. They made Superman fly because Captain Marvel could fly. I don't know if people knew that. But after they shut down, after, after they successfully sued and had them stop making Captain Marvel, they end up buying out that company and incorporated into National Publications, which became DC Comics. So, yeah, a little bit comic book history. But yeah, like I said, if you're talking about stuff that's been going on for almost 90 years, of course there's going to be like a lot of stuff that's repeated. It's inevitable. And actually, a lot of comic book people like it because they like being able to go into stuff that they know where they have some expectations of how things will happen. Sort of like when you watch your favorite shows, you kind of have some expectations of what's going to happen, and when it doesn't happen, you don't like that. You don't understand, Miss Nita. It's not about money. It's about comic book people love this stuff. It's the stuff they for the same reason like when people watch sports, the same thing happens in the sports games over and over again. People watch TV shows, same thing happened in these TV shows over and over again. Um, if you're not a comic book person, you don't understand. But like people read the stuff for the continuity that they provide, and a lot of original sci-fi ideas come out of comic books. This is why the movies are so successful because prior to these movies making these comic book movies, they didn't realize that all these different ideas that came out of comic books. Miss Neal says, I mean, I get it. Don't you just stop making art? But if it's like a big corporation, it can become forced at a point and stop being good usually. Well, they've always been owned by big corporations though, so that's it's not whether they're owned by corporations. It's whether this is good, is written well, is are they written well? Is the art good? Um, but yeah, they've always been owned by big companies. Like I said, DC was formerly National Publications. Before they were bought out by Warner Brothers. Marvel was originally Timely Comics before they were, bought by Disney. Well, even before Disney, they became Marvel Entertainment. But yeah, Miss Needle says like with bands and labels, they keep making the same album over and over again because they have to do it and it lacks the creativity and soul. I think that's unfair though. Like so. Uh, well, see, you don't read comics, so you don't understand. Like, if you read this stuff, like, it's still creative. You can make, even when you look at art, is a lot of art copies from other art, which copies from other art, which copies from other art, which copies from other art. That doesn't mean it's not creative. Part of creativity is being able to do stuff that came prior. That is a part of the creative process, actually. And like I said, there's a lot of interesting stories that came out of these comic books. Like, yes, a lot of stuff is repetitive, but it's not something that you would get bored with. This is why they try out new things. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. You know, like when you try out stuff where like Superman isn't as powerful as he once was, or when Batman loses his fortune, um, Nightwing loses his memories, and I mean they do a whole bunch of different stuff. Or you had a really unlikable thing in Marvel when Captain America became a Hydra agent, and people were so pissed. They was like, "Oh my God, how you gonna make Captain America a Nazi?" But yeah, I mean, if you have something out that long, it's gonna be good stuff and bad stuff. So, you ignore the bad stuff and you go with the good stuff. But often it's just subjective. What some people consider good, what some people think is bad. And again, that's why they have these retcons to keep things fresh. That's the whole purpose of comic book retcons every dozen years or so, is to keep stuff fresh for new readers. As it would just be hard for a new reader to come into a, like, say they just watched a new the new Batman movie, and so they want to jump into Batman comics, and they go to the comic book store, and everything is, they're saying Batman issue 1013, and then they be completely overwhelmed, like, oh my God, do I got to read 1,000 comics to catch up to where it currently is? And so even though, like I said, all the DC comics still have their original numbering, dating all the way back to the original comics from the 30s and 40s. The retcon makes it so that they can, a comic book, uh, like a comic book store owner can say, hey, oh, so you want to check out Batman, but you don't, but you're new to it. Okay, here, start right here. See, this is like, this is issue number 1007, but this is a start of a whole. This is the new start of Batman, starting right here. It isn't 1007, by the way. I'm just making that number up, but they were like, okay, so you can start right here. This is um, the new start of Batman that came out this year. And they was like, check this out. And then if people really get into it, then they might want to check out all the back issues from like decades and decades ago. But that's the whole point of the retcons, is so that people can jump into their favorite characters they seen from a movie and be able to be like, okay, this is cool. Miss Needle says, I think it also comes down to how you memorize stories or anything, because if you've seen it before and it's too similar, my brain is like, nope, not interesting, waste of memory space. That's fair. That's a fair point. So, like I said, my first jumping into Batman was Death in the Family. Um, and then afterwards, my second take on Batman was Son of the Demon. Uh, and after that, I just started. After that, the way I got into it, I did two things. One of them was a really nerdy thing, is that I bought a Batman encyclopedia and just read about everything about Batman up until that point. I have like about 4 or 5 different Batman encyclopedias because every retcon there's more there's more material to add to those Batman encyclopedias. So I had the first Batman encyclopedia, which came out I think in like the late '70s, early '80s. Then there's my favorite one called the Essential Batman Encyclopedia. I think that's the best one for people to get, but it won't catch them up with the stuff that came out from the last. It won't catch you up with the stuff that came out in the last 12 years. But if you want to know about all the stuff that came prior to like the last 12 years, the Essentials Batman Encyclopedia is really good, by Robert S. Greene, I believe. Then I have the a bunch of newer Batman encyclopedias that catch up on his newer retcons. But that's how I jumped into it. I bought a Batman encyclopedia, and then I started buying the trade paperbacks of all the most iconic storylines from Batman. Like especially like I said, there's a few Batman storylines that have become sacrosanct within the mythos that they've never changed it, even after they rebooted the DC. So the Killing Joke is still canon. Um, Definite Family is still canon. Batman Year One is still kind of canon, and the Long Halloween sort of still canon. Um, the Joker, I forgot which Joker comic book, but it's something. But all of those are still kind of canon. So that's how I jumped into it. I bought the stuff that was still canon despite how many reboots there's been, and I bought Batman Encyclopedia. And then I just started reading the 2011 reboot run, and then I started reading all the stuff from the '90s, and then I bought the omnibus of like the very first Batman stories from the golden age of comics, and I bought an omnibus with the very first stories of him from the silver age of comics, which started in the '50s. So that's how I did that. Oh, I can't see. Oh, here they are. But yeah, if you have to be like a comic book nerd to get into it, Miss Needle. But trust me, if it's something you're passionate about, it will definitely hold your interest. You won't consider it boring. Like there's a lot of stuff that I don't read, so I just stick to my favorite characters. Like I don't read, like both DC and Marvel like to have, when they reboot stuff, they like to have this um, big overarching crisis that envelops the entire Marvel and envelops the entire DC. So I usually don't pay attention to those except for the classic ones: Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinite Crisis. Um, DC has a habit of calling all these little reboots where they change everything going on crises. um, but DC was the first one to start that whole program of putting their whole comic book universe together to have like one like universe shattering event, and that started with Crisis on Infinite Earths, which, like I said, then Marvel copied and did the Secret War saga. Um, but usually I don't pay attention to that. I just pay attention to the individual characters that I like. So I'll individually buy comics for Batman or Daredevil or Captain America, or Wolverine. I bought some for Superman, like individual stories, and or like paperbacks, like that give you the entire story, stuff like that. So yeah, you have to get into the whole comic book nerddom to understand that. So Guys, I'm about to go eat in a little while. Unless there was any other like thoughts or questions or whatever. I like this was more chill. I could actually keep up with the comments today. Yesterday, it was literally thousands of comments because I was speaking about something politically tinged, and there were just so many thoughts on it. I felt bad for the folks who were in here from yesterday. I feel really bad that I couldn't get to everyone's comments. Um, but it was literally too many. It was like literally thousands of comments, and I stayed up for 4 hours, and I mean 4 hours up until like it was like around 3:50 in the morning that I realized I had been up. I was like, oh my god, I still gotta get up around like 6 something in the morning, and I usually like getting up earlier than that, but there was no way I could get up at the time I want around 5 a.m. I, so I got up around 6:46. Um, and was kind of dozing between that until I could actually get up. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore. Or if I do have a long live stream, I'm just going to start it earlier. Thanks, Miss Nita. She says, well, enjoy your dinner and have a good night. Thanks. Like I said, this um, this live stream was dedicated to, you know, the premiere of Deadpool and Wolverine coming out today. I My friend is going to see it, so I'm gonna ask him how good it is. But I'm planning on seeing it this weekend, and I might go see it for free because there's a theater that's doing a special thing now, where they're gonna show movies in the summer for free. So I'm definitely checking that out. I need to reserve my ticket. I just need to figure out what day I want to do it, either Saturday or Sunday. But alright, guys. Um, Again, thank you, Blue River, for the super chat. Anyone else that I missed, thanks as well. Yesterday I received several, so that's what's up. And as you see, I tried the horizontal stream today instead of the vertical live stream. It works a little bit differently. That the comments appear and disappear, but I can still track them by just touching the screen and it'll bring them up. So that's a cool format. So I might do the horizontal again as well tomorrow. But until then, guys, take care. Have a good one.